Welcome back to the Drive to Dayton podcast. I'm your host, Michael Roth from Prep Hoops, Ohio. And it's going to be a little shorter episode, a solo episode. Me and TJ just could not get our schedules to line up this week. And I definitely wanted to post something before a really busy Martin Luther King weekend. There's a ton of basketball to discuss all across the state. I've also watched a decent amount of basketball over the past week and a half since we had our last show. So I'm going to go through all the recaps of the games that I've been to recently, preview Flying to the Hoop and all the other events, and also just update you guys on everything going on in the news across Ohio high school basketball. So we'll get started. First event I need to cover is the New Year's Bash at Harvest Prep. This was a 5-game event. I was there for 3 of the games, and the first game I was at was Mansfield Senior getting a convincing win over Maumee Valley Country Day. Kevy Roan is a unique prospect for the Tigers as he runs point guard, but also does a majority of his damage in the paint. He's got a physical style of play with a strong frame and ended the game just 2 points short of 1,000 for his career. Another name to watch for Mansfield is freshman Kalen Brooks. He is a shooting guard who can knock down shots off movement on the wing, plays well in transition. Definitely a name that fans across the Mansfield and northern central Ohio area will know over the next 3 seasons as well. Transitioning over to Maumee Valley Country Day, they're led by 3 sophomores who I think will have a lot of success if they stick together the next 2 seasons. Ty Lewis is a headliner, standing at 6'11". He might be the tallest player in OHSAA. And it's funny because Maumee Valley Country Day, as TJ Petros said when we were at the event together, they might have the tallest and the shortest player in the state. Kind of a funny coincidence for them. But Lewis has improved as a passer. Really able to beat double teams by looking over the defender and kicking it out to shooters. But he still is just scratching the surface of his talents as a player. When he gets stronger, more comfortable finishing in the paint, he's going to be a lot tougher to guard, but really makes a big impact as a rim protector. And he can beat double teams by passing it out to sophomore guards like Kieran Stokes and Jabraham Price. There are other names to know for the Hawks. A really solid 2027 group for Maumee Valley Country Day. Then in a battle of unbeaten teams, Chesapeake took down Franklin Monroe. Maddox Kazee had a big game for the Panthers, who used a second half effort to pull away. Kazee can just handle the ball from the point guard position, able to break down closeouts from the top of the key, shoots a pretty jumper off the catch, and can hit pull-ups. Just a really impressive all-around scoring effort for a 2027 guard. Chesapeake is a team that's going to return a lot of their production this season, next year. So they could be even better, and they're currently sitting undefeated. Franklin Monroe, on the other hand, they've been without star senior Eric Brenner for the past month or so. He should return for the playoffs, and I think this team has the talent to make a run in Division 7 with Lucas Brenner, E.B. Fall, and Blake Rifle standing out against Chesapeake, a team to watch in Division 7 in Southwest Ohio. And then the final game I saw was Dublin Kaufman getting a victory over Columbus Westland. Thomas Cochran and Gabe Schmidt, 2 guys who stood out for Dublin Kaufman. Cochran has a ton of long-term upside on both ends of the court. He's an impressive athlete, has the length to jump passing lanes. Dublin Kaufman sometimes uses him sort of at the top of the key in a zone pressing situation, and Cochran can really disrupt ball handlers and passers when they're looking to make passes into the front court. Schmidt also made some impressive passes in transition, and he works well as a secondary creator who can knock down shots off the catch or dribble. And then I headed out before the host Harvest Prep took down Flight Academy, as the Warriors have really hit their stride over the past couple weeks. That brings us to the Cleveland play-by-play camp at John Carroll University. This day was filled from start to finish, 7 games, 7 tight contests. Just a fantastic day of hoops. It all started with Cleveland Central Catholic taking down Hawken in overtime. Once again, the 2027 duo of King Young and Donovan Driscoll stood out. I was also impressed with senior big Deontay James. He made some impressive plays in the paint on both ends of the court, blocking shots, finishing at the rim, getting second chance opportunities for his team. And then for Hawken, 2026 guard Gregory Price, I was impressed with his patience, his production. He's a kid who isn't going to wow you with his athleticism or physical tools, but he knows how to play, plays off 2 feet, and he's one of the more productive guards in Northeast Ohio's 2026 class. And then Ice Taylor is another name to know. TJ mentioned him on the podcast earlier in the year. He's one of the top 2028 prospects in Northeast Ohio, and he stood out on Sunday at John Carroll University. Then Lutheran West took down Glenville as seniors Ryan Kalo and Matthew Meyer fueled the Longhorns' performance. For Glenville, they were led by Mayfield transfer Xavier Vickerstaff. The lefty 6'5" forward was knocking down shots, being physical on both ends of the court, and he was efficient shooting from the field. And the Tarblooders, they have a deep senior core with Vickerstaff, Braylon Irby, and Lorenzo Staley. That's a lot of size, a lot of experience for Glenville. They'll be a team to watch in Northeast Ohio. Reynoldsburg made the trip up from Columbus, and they took down Richmond Heights in a game flooded with Division I commits. Recently, making his commitment to Ohio University, Jordan Bowens was absolutely dominant on the interior. Nobody on the undersized Spartan squad could stop him in the paint or keep him off the offensive glass. He was the difference in the game, just getting so many extra possessions for Reynoldsburg and was super efficient from the floor as well. And then we go over to Richmond Heights. They're really missing the size of Dorian Jones. He's their tallest player in their rotation and was still out with an injury. So hopefully Dorian can get back healthy and on the court for some of Richmond Heights' key games to wrap up the regular season and also their quest for a fourth straight state championship. It would be the first team in OHSAA history to achieve that. So we're going to be keeping track of Richmond Heights coming into the months of February and March. Then in a battle of Division I state title threats, Olentangy Orange outlasted St. Ignatius in overtime. Devin Brown played maybe the most complete game I've seen of his career. He was scoring the ball efficiently. He really willed his way to the paint on numerous occasions off the dribble, and he either looked to score in the paint or he made some tight window passes to cutters. One of the best passers in Ohio's 2025 class. And when Devin Brown is scoring the basketball, there's really not many players you would want to win a high school game in Ohio, if any players you would rather take to win one high school game. It was a masterful performance by Brown, who simply willed his way to victory. And some other names to know for Olentangy Orange, I thought they got big plays from their junior guard duo of Levi Davis and Trayton Schroeder. They are two football players who also make a big impact on the Pioneers basketball program. It's always so important to get multi-sport athletes in your program. Some of the smaller division teams do a great job with it. It's more rare at the Division I level, but look at Olentangy Orange, one of the top Division I teams in Ohio. And like I mentioned, two of their key pieces are football players. Also have Eastern Michigan baseball commit Keegan Nupp. It's really important to get multi-sport athletes to play a role for their program because, I mean, Levi Davis adds a very different dynamic for Olentangy Orange with his quickness, his defensive intensity, and ability to play on the perimeter. They would be a much worse team if he stuck to only playing football. And then on the St. Ignatius side, this is my first time watching them this season, and I was really impressed with Damon Fryery. I mean, he knocked down a handful of three-pointers, was finishing using his length at the rim, and he's just a guy who continues to improve. Every time I don't watch Damon for a couple months and then I watch him play, he just seems to look stronger, more confident. He's one of the youngest seniors in Ohio. We'll see if he's able to play at Dayton early in his career, but I just love the strides that he's been able to make, and he's a kid who I would buy stock in down the line and having a good college career once his body continues to fill out and adds the necessary strength, because He's probably younger than half of the 2026 kids that people are watching and talking about. So I'm always a fan of players that are young for their grade. I think it's something to buy long-term stock in, and no better example than Damon Fryery. Some other names for St. Ignatius that stood out: seniors Callie Johnson and Jimmy Thomas. They were both two solid utility pieces, made big plays as cutters, going after loose balls, providing energy. Johnson is a big time athlete. He's had some really big scoring games. He plays well off of Division One commits Damon Fryery and Quinn Wodke. And then in the most anticipated game of the day, from just a atmosphere crowds perspective, we're at John Carroll University in East Cleveland, and two East Side teams. Garfield Heights takes down Lutheran East in a back and forth battle. Garfield Heights was led, of course, by Ohio State commit Marcus Johnson, who was actually playing through a sickness. And I thought that Johnson gave Garfield Heights the right balance of scoring and passing, did an excellent job of scoring at the rim and also making a couple tough pull-up jumpers. But he was also getting double teamed often in the half court, especially when Garfield Heights would run pick and rolls. And Johnson did a nice job of hitting the open man and getting his teammates open shots. And then St. Edward transfers Nasir Hines and Braylon Sullivan. They were both huge for Garfield Heights. Hines has the length to protect the rim and grab offensive rebounds, really long wingspan on him. He's also improved his body from last season, just better able to handle physical play in the paint. He's one of the more improved kids in Ohio from a junior to senior perspective. And he's got an interesting upside, definitely a name that I'm going to continue to monitor watching Garfield Heights this year. And then Sullivan is just a gritty guard who he's going to defend, he's going to push the pace, he's going to make winning plays for you. So two guys who have fit in well with unbeaten Garfield Heights. And then on the Lutheran East side, I thought sophomore Chris Hill was fantastic on both ends of the court. I always am impressed with what he brings on the defensive side of the court, but out of the three Lutheran East games I've seen this year, it was definitely Chris Hill's best offensive performance. Dylan Ziegler also made some really impressive scoring plays. He's a guy who it seems like we bring up almost every podcast episode. And then TJ Crumble did a solid job scoring in the paint. He's shockingly the old, experienced leader of a young Lutheran East squad. So it'll be interesting to see how Lutheran East continues to grow, because it seems like they're going to be a much improved team in February and March than what they were in November. But if we remember November, they got that victory over Olentangy Liberty to start the season. So looks like the Falcons might be state title favorites in Division 5, currently number one in the Martin RPI rankings. Another game that went to literally the final buzzer. John Horton gave Akron St. Vincent St. Mary a crucial victory over Brunswick. I was impressed with Horton all night long. He's taken strides as a finisher, just catching the ball, going up decisively in the paint. He wasn't wasting any time. His hands have improved, and at his size, if he's just able to get on the pick and roll, and when he's open, catch, finish before you can get help side defense rotating to contest the shot, that makes all the difference for him. DeCarlo Prince had a big first quarter. He's a junior wing with multiple MAC offers for football, but definitely a name to know on the hardwood as well. And for the Irish freshman, Asen Lomack stood out. He made some really impressive dribble moves and has a high feel for a freshman, a name that I'm going to continue to watch out of the Akron area. And then finally, to end the night, Louisville got a victory over Amani Christian despite being without Braden Gross. Leopards are looking to get back to 100% fully healthy and continue to stack victories. They had a really tough West Coast trip, but they are back in Ohio. Also got a recent victory over Akron Garfield. And I thought senior Tate Aljanchik did a nice job in the first half for the Leopards. He just provides good size. He's a multi-sport athlete, and another senior name to watch. Goes a little bit under the radar because we always seem to talk about both Siegfried and Braden Gross. Aljanchik stood out with Gross's absence. And then I also attended a handful of individual games since our last podcast episode. Going to break those down here. Starting off last Friday night, so the 3rd of January, I went to Indian Hill at Cincinnati LaSalle, and the Lancers got the victory. It was my first time at LaSalle High School, and their senior class was strong all night. Max Welter is a Division I football recruit, but he had some insane dunks off alley-oops and putbacks. So one of the best athletes in Southwest Ohio's 2027 class. The way he can play above the rim is really impressive. And I mean, he could have made a huddle highlight reel off of one night's work. So big time stuff from Max Welter. And I thought Patrick McLaughlin and Dre Arnold provided just experienced play from the guard position. McLaughlin has a quick trigger as a shooter. Arnold is a point guard who's played a ton of GCL basketball. Finally, for LaSalle, freshman CJ Davis is a name to know moving forward. He's got tremendous defensive upside, really can move his feet, long arms. Looks like he's going to continue to grow. Already stands at about 6'1". And I mean, he was talking on defense and knowing where to be as a help side defender. That's something that I don't see from half of the senior guards I watch. So the fact that he was able to do that as a freshman, really impressive. I think that if he plays JV and gets the valuable offensive reps that he needs and continues to provide a spark to the Lancers at varsity, he's going to be a kid who by his sophomore and junior year is going to be a household name within the GCL. So come back to me in 12, 24 months when we're hearing about CJ Davis as a big time player for Cincinnati LaSalle. On the Indian Hill side, William Bennett had a really strong second half. He's a junior forward who is improving as a ball handler, has the ability to face up, attack from the wing or the top of the key, also making strides as a jump shooter, knocking down a pair of triples. If he can just get stronger and not get pushed off his spots and finish through contact, he's going to be a big-time player as a senior. With his size, he's going to be a guy that scholarship programs are going to be prioritizing to watch this summer on the AAU circuit. Freshman Rocco DeSanto struggled from the floor on Friday, but he continues to score it at a high level for a freshman at over 15 points a game. And since that game on Friday, he's had over 2 3-pointers in the following 3 contests. On Tuesday, which was January 7th, I caught some MVL action with John Glenn hosting Tri-Valley. I just love the MVL this year. When you look at John Glenn, Tri-Valley, who I just mentioned, and I'm going to break down their game, Maysville, Coshocton, New Lexington. When I'm thinking about it, I think there's 3 leagues that separate themselves. Actually, I'm going to say 4 from a population perspective. It's clearly the MVL, the MAC with Delphos St. John's and Marion Local having an unbeaten battle. And the MAC has plenty of other talented players and teams. And also the Shelby County Athletic League. When you look at Russia and Botkins, they're the headliners, Jackson Center as well in Division 7. And then finally, I'll mention this league a little bit later, but the Columbus Catholic League, I mean, a 4-team league that has Division 3 threats with Bishop Hartley, Bishop Watterson, and also DeSales. So a lot of high-level basketball being played in those 4 leagues. And John Glenn got the victory over rival Tri-Valley. They pressed the entire game. They did a great job of having active hands, always looking to strip the ball handlers, and then immediately threw it ahead, pushed on the fast break. 4 of the 5 starters for the Little Muskies are juniors, so expect to hear about them next season as well. I'm going to save their standout performer for my Player of the Week segment, so stay tuned for that, John Glenn fans. On the Tri-Valley side, they're a senior-laden team. They got a quarterback and wide receiver duo who led the way on Tuesday. Max Lyle knocked down a couple threes, and he can really swing the ball all over the court. But when you watch him on the hardwood, it's no surprise that he is also a standout quarterback. And then for the wide receiver part of the duo, that is senior Keaton Hahn. He's got excellent size at 6'4" and has the athleticism on the wing to run in transition. He can knock down shots off the catch and can score second chance points in the paint, just being taller and stronger than everybody on John Glenn. I mean, their center was standing around 6'3". So Han did a really nice job of taking advantage of an undersized team. And the Scotties have played, I think, as tough, if not the toughest non-conference schedule of any team in the East or Southeast region. So we'll see if that pays off come playoff time for the Scotties. And then I got snowed in on Friday, the 10th. So Saturday, the 11th, my first high school game of the night was an unbeaten clash at Columbus Academy between the host Vikings and Bishop Reedy. And Jason Singleton was absolutely unbelievable. The junior is one of the most improved players in the state from where he was the summer to where he is now, night and day. He had a dominant performance on both ends of the court, ending the game with a buzzer beater layup in overtime to keep his team unbeaten. Singleton was efficient from the floor, made a ton of defensive plays, probably blocked 4 shots, and he just played with a level head, was calm and collected, and when his team needed him to step up, Singleton made those plays. He's an impressive athlete who is going to blow up recruitment wise, currently holding one Division I offer from Detroit Mercy. And Singleton's surrounded by seniors Theo Falkenhayn and Anderson Davis. They have a ton of chemistry next to Singleton and have played a ton of basketball together. This was actually the first game Columbus Academy played within 19 points all season. So they've been absolutely crushing the competition. Last thing to note on Columbus Academy, sophomore Caden Ivory. He's got a ton of long-term upside. The flash plays that you see him make as an athlete are very impressive. He isn't dominating just yet, but he has the potential to be one of the best players in Central Ohio by the time he is a senior. His older brother was the same way as a big-time athlete. So athleticism certainly runs in the Ivory family. He's a name that I think people are going to really know very soon. Moving over to the Bishop Reedy side, they were led by Caden Schaefer. And during the summer, Schaefer is a wing who did a bunch of dirty work, defender, make shots off the catch. And that's probably going to be what he plays at the college level. His older brother, Caleb, is at Walsh. Caden is also committed to Walsh. And Caleb just does an excellent job getting the most out of his talents. And he's established a role in the Walsh rotation as a sophomore. Caden will have the chance to do the same thing. But he went from, like I mentioned, being a defensive glue guy piece. He's the primary scoring option for Bishop Reedy in the winter. And he had a really impressive drive and finish to tie the game in the fourth quarter. Watching kids sort of get out of their comfort zone and being forced to create off the bounce, it was impressive seeing Schaefer do what he did in some big moments against an unbeaten team on the road. That's a kid who just flat out is not afraid of the moment. And another name to know for Bishop Reedy, sophomore Mike Daniels. He made a couple plays off the bounce, can knock down 3-pointers, really plays with a lot of aggressiveness, trying to make plays. And then finally on Saturday night, I headed to Hamilton Township at Lyndon McKinley, got there around halftime, and I left really impressed with junior Jovan McBride from Hamilton Township. He holds multiple Division I football offers, but he really has more of a basketball body, and he showcased his court vision, his ability to change speeds quickly, change directions with the ball in his hands, and has a lot of transition ability. Didn't really get to see him take, he only took one jumper because when I got there, Hamilton Township was up 19 at halftime, and they ended up running away with it. Hamilton Township only has one loss, but McBride is a kid who I'm going to need to see more of after only getting half. He could make a big leap this summer and get onto regional colleges' radar for basketball. He's already there for football, but a name that I think more people need to know in the Columbus area. Now we are going to move to our What to Watch segment. And the main reason why I'm doing this episode and dropping it now is to preview Flying to the Hoop at Trent Arena inside Kettering Fairmont High School. 4-day event. tons of talented teams. I think there's probably almost 100 players who will play Division I basketball throughout the whole weekend. So a really fantastic event to attend. And we'll start off Friday night. Richmond Heights takes on Dynamic Prep. They're loaded with high major talent. It'll be a huge challenge for the undersized Spartans. We'll see what Richmond Heights has in store. And then the nightcap on Friday, Darren Peterson and Nico Bundelow return to their home state with #1 nationally ranked Prolific Prep against AZ Compass Prep. So I really hope that we get a good crowd for Peterson and Bundelow, two of the best players to come from Ohio over the past few seasons. Peterson, one of the best players to come out of Ohio this century, and Bundelow, a high 4-star national recruit committed to Washington in the Big Ten. Saturday, I will get my first in-person look at Jayshawn Coffey from Lebanon. He's regarded as one of the top freshmen in Ohio, and they are going up against Dayton Dunbar. And then another top freshman from Ohio that will be playing on Saturday is Cam Mercer for Huntington Prep. They take on Lutheran East. That's a game with tons of young Division I talent. And then also on Saturday, Olentangy Orange takes on CIA Bella Vista. This is a game I think could go any way. I mean, I could see Olentangy Orange winning in a blowout. I could see Olentangy Orange winning close. I could see CIA Bella Vista winning close. I could see CIA Bella Vista winning in a blowout. I mean, this could go literally any direction. Clear strengths on both sides. So it'll be interesting to see how prepared both teams come out for, which should be a big time matchup. And that game leads perfectly into Kettering Alter. They're playing at their city rivals court, but they almost pulled off a huge upset last year. This time, they aren't underdogs at all. They're taking on a Louisville squad in which should be as much of a coin flip game as any. Both these teams could really use a victory. They've taken some losses to out-of-state competition, but both Louisville and Kettering Alter are regarded as state title threats in Division III and Division IV. So this would be a signature victory for whoever can get it. On Sunday, Delaware Hayes takes on prep powerhouse Western Reserve Academy. They are led by former Lebanon star Anthony Thompson, a 5-star in the class of 2026, who holds numerous high major offers. St. Ignatius then takes on Moeller in a battle of, I mean, these are two of the most iconic private school athletic programs in Ohio. I'm super excited to watch this one. Haven't gotten to see Moeller yet this season. And like I mentioned at the play-by-play classic at John Carroll, that was my first time catching St. Ignatius, who I still believe is one of the top teams in Division I. Moeller as well, despite taking a tough loss to Elder on the road in conference play, I still think they have the ability to win a region and make it to the Final Four. So that'll be a fantastic game. And then Sunday night wraps up with Reynoldsburg taking on Centerville. The Elks have had tremendous success at flying to the hoop recently. Took down SoCal Academy 2 years in a row in 2022 and 2023. This year, they'll look to take down unbeaten and my #1 team in Division I, Reynoldsburg. That leads us to Monday, where Northwest Ohio powerhouses Lima Senior and Toledo Whitmer take on Southern powerhouses Pace Academy and Combine Academy. Going to be a lot of athletes and a lot of talented guards in those two games. Start the day on Monday. Then Margaretta takes on Valley View. That's the small town showdown of the weekend. Margaretta currently undefeated. They are led by Julian Washington, who holds a handful of Division I offers, as well as Judah Keller. They also got a couple of 2027 prospects to watch as well. They were regional runner-ups in Division III last season. They are now in Division V, looking to make it to the Final Four. And they will take on a Valley View squad that has one loss. They have a 2027 duo of Brody Denny and Ty Fritz. I saw Valley View at the Dayton team camp. That's the only time I've watched them play. They were a fun team to watch, not afraid to get up and down the court. It'll be very interesting to see how they handle taking on a Margaretta squad that's probably as talented as Valley View has seen all season. And then to wrap up the event, host Kettering Fairmont takes on Lakota West. It will be my first time seeing Lakota West this season. They are led by 2027 duo Josh Tyson and Bryce Curry. Both of those guards have gotten high major offers. Tyson recently picking up his first from West Virginia. Tons of notable events across the state this MLK weekend. We got the Coach Young Classic at North Adams featuring North Adams and Eastern Brown. They're both playing in the penultimate and final game of the night. So there'll be two teams to watch in Southeast Ohio come playoff time. We also got the Hoover Hoops MLK Classic. Norwayne takes on Massillon Perry. Canfield takes on Uniontown Green, and host North Canton Hoover plays Barberton. Those are the three games I'm most curious to see the results of. That's a two-day event on Saturday and Sunday. Then we mentioned the battle in the 614 a little bit during our past episode, mentioned some of the top games to watch, but under the radar, small division games, New Lexington versus Columbus Academy and Monroe Central versus Milford Center Fairbanks. Those are really interesting Saturday games. I think that whoever wins those games are going to pick up quality victories. And on Sunday, I don't believe we mentioned Trotwood taking on DeSales. That is a major clash of styles. It'll be interesting to see who can dominate the tempo. Last time I remember Trotwood playing in a marquee game against Columbus squad. They shot the lights out against Hilliard Bradley and pulled off the victory on the road. We'll see if they have the same luck in Columbus this weekend. As always, the Fort Loramie MLK shootout is loaded with top small town teams from the region. I always wish I could attend this event. If it was on any other weekend, I would make it one of my top priorities, but won't be able to make it as I'll be at Flying to the Hoop all weekend. Starting off, the Fort Loramie MLK shootout was Marion Local taking on Maumee Valley Country Day. That's a battle of the bigs. Austin Niekamp is a Malone commit. He takes on sophomore Ty Lewis, who we mentioned earlier. And Marion Local, the Flyers, have a big one Friday night versus Delphos St. John in a game that could determine the MAC regular season championship. Marion Local, one of two programs who are currently unbeaten in both boys and girls high school basketball this season, the other being Vandalia Butler. Other action in the Fort Loramie MLK shootout. I was hoping to see Minster versus Versailles last Friday. That would have been the 10th of January, but I got snowed in, unfortunately, wasn't able to leave Cincinnati. And both those teams play. They're in action against Jonathan Alder and Tippecanoe, respectively. So hoping to potentially see either Minster or Versailles later in the season. I really wish I could have gotten it out to their game on Friday. They actually did play, but it's a lot easier for them to get to each other than it would have been for me from downtown Cincinnati and home on Friday. Tri-Village takes on Russia. That's probably the headline attraction of the entire event. These are two teams that could easily win their region in Division 6 and Division 7, respectively. And finally, the hosts take on Miami Valley Christian Academy. Senior Gavin French is scoring almost 20 games for Miami Valley Christian Academy. He's a name to watch against Fort Loramie. And to wrap up, Anna takes on Tiffin Calvert. Those are two teams that have had a ton of success over the past few seasons. And then last event in Ohio going on during this MLK weekend that we're going to mention on the Drive to Dayton podcast is the Rossford MLK Classic. Toledo St. John's takes on a Sandusky Perkins squad that wants to push the pace, and the host, Rossford, wraps up the night taking on Toledo Christian. Carter Kosier has been absolutely fantastic as a senior leader for Toledo Christian. He was, I believe, my player of the week for the first episode of the Drive to Dayton podcast this season. And that brings us to my players and teams of the week. My player of the week, I teased this earlier. I'm going with Steele Bates from John Glenn. He was killing it in a rivalry victory over Tri Valley, creating shots off of isolation, usually resulting in a floater, but his pull-up three-pointer at the halftime horn was nasty. It was a huge performance by Bates as John Glenn is sitting at 10-1 at the midway point of the season, a big-time threat in Division 4 Eastern Ohio. My team of the week, Bishop Hartley Hawks out of Columbus. Since the calendar turned to 2025, I'm not sure if anybody has been more impressive than the Hawks. They defeated previously unbeaten Hamilton Township by 36, Eastmore Academy by 19, previously unbeaten Bishop Watterson by 10, Olentangy Berlin by 30, and they also just took down 8-2 Mansfield Senior by 32 points. Dominant performances by a team that will have a chance to make it to the Final Four. They fell at the buzzer last season at Ohio University to Maysville. We will see if the Hawks can get over the hump and make it to the Final Four this season. And that will lead us to my interview with Fairfield head coach DJ Wyrick, previewing Flying to the Hoop game between Fairfield and St. Vincent St. Mary, and also some other topics about the Indian season this year. Hope you guys enjoy. And I'm now joined by Fairfield head coach DJ Wyrick, and it's a fitting time for you to join the podcast. I mean, you guys have had a great start to the season, and it's Flying to the Hoop weekend. So, Coach, first question for you. What's sort of your favorite memory of Flying to the Hoop? I know you guys have been there in the past. Excited for another trip to Trent Arena?
Yeah, we're really excited. Favorite memory, I don't really have one to be honest with you. We're 0-2 at Flying to the Hoop. We had Richmond Heights on the ropes one year, and then we had St. Vincent St. Mary right there. Both really close games, both great games. So I guess my best memory is just the overall experience because that's a first class event that they run, and it's a great opportunity for exposure for our kids. So that's probably the best thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, you'll have another Northeast Ohio powerhouse in St. Vincent St. Mary coming against your schedule, so that'll be a very interesting game. I mean, a fantastic weekend long four night event at Trent Arena. But talking about your season in general, I mean, you guys got off to a fantastic start to the year. I mean, coming out the gates, you have a senior laden team. Did you kind of expect a group of seniors that played together, won a lot of games in the month of June to have as fast of a start as they did?
Yeah, I mean, I felt good. I felt confident going into the season because we had an outstanding summer. We had a great summer, and then we had a really good off season. Spent a lot of time together, obviously, but the guys were working hard. They liked being around each other. Really connected group, fun group to coach. So, like, I knew, and we're talented too, So I knew we had a chance if we continued to stay as connected as we have. I knew we had a chance to have a pretty successful season. Now, obviously, we're halfway through the regular season. We got a long way to go here, but if we continue to work at it, this could be a special group.
Absolutely. And you guys lost Cam Sanders as his family moved down to Georgia. And it seemed like that allowed Davion Krim and Michael Lewis to sort of become leaders in the backcourt. What have they been able to do with the opportunity to lead the team, run the show, play with the ball in their hands when a great player like Cam, committed at the Division 1 level, was taking a lot of shots and doing a lot of the leadership role for your team when the three of those guys were all juniors?
Yeah, it's interesting how that works sometimes because, the ball moves really well with those two. Mike's kind of running the point for us. Dave's kind of running the two. But they play really well together. They share the ball. And then, those two can really create and play make. And then, we got Matt Hilbert, who's a knockdown shooter. We got a really good center in Gabe Clemens. Ray Miracone is a really good forward, really tough kid. It's these guys just fit really well together. They play well together. They have confidence in each other. And I think that's what opened it up. the ball just didn't move as much last year as it does this year. Our shot selection has been a lot better. Like we struggled with that a little bit last year, and part of that was we just had a lot of really talented guys who could go make plays, and they had the confidence to go make those. Where this year we're playing more structured, more as a team. The ball's really flying around the perimeter, getting inside out. So that's helped us a ton this year.
And speaking of Gabe Clemens, it seems like some of the statistical jumps he's made has been huge. I mean, he's second in the GMC right now for rebounding, top five in block shots. What has been the biggest growth in his game from junior to senior year?
Gabe's always been really skilled. The biggest jump that he's probably made is just his conditioning. I mean, he worked really hard in the weight room in the off season. And if you haven't seen him yet this year, he looks different. Um, he's really worked on his body. He's worked hard to do that. He's running the floor so much better. He's able to post much more physically now. And he's kind of embraced that. He's kind of got some confidence that way from the weight room. And it's helped his game in a lot of ways.
It seems like in GMC games, whenever I come to a game and I get there a little early, the JV games typically have like a couple guys that you can identify and go, that's a future star on
Mhm.
really any of the teams in the league. What's been the most important part of building up a JV program and having guys sort of wait their turn, because you can probably count on your finger how many freshmen are making big impacts in the entire conference right now.
Yeah, it's interesting, and our JV games are some really good games. Like they're fun to watch. And honestly, with the new 6 quarter rule, you got a lot of guys that are swinging and playing both. You've got obviously your freshmen playing JV, you've got your JV playing some varsity too, and that's made it much more competitive. With the 5 quarters in the past, it was a little trick. It was a little more tricky. Um, but our JV games are really really intense, and you'll see crowds starting to show up, earlier in the JV games because they're typically really good games. There's a lot of balance in our league. I mean, with the schools in our league are just big enrollment wise, so that's gonna breed, better JV teams, obviously. And then I feel like the coaches in our league have done a good job of building their programs and making it, something kids want to be a part of. And now you're starting to see a few more of those multi-sport guys, which then opens up, more talent on the JV level. So it's been a fun year for JV too. And they're always intense competitive games.
Absolutely. Speaking of multi-sport guys, I mean, I remember Ray Coney a couple of years ago, a big-time
Mhm.
football player who made a big impact for you as a starter. I know we already mentioned the flying to the hoop game, but on Friday, I mean, you guys have a big one against Princeton. It's currently a three-way tie atop the GMC with Fairfield, Lakota East, and Princeton. What do you think is going to be the biggest sort of key to the game, or something that you respect about Princeton's program that you're going to try to stop? Because, I mean, they've had a ton of success under Brian White.
Yeah, Princeton, it's become quite the rivalry with Fairfield and Princeton. So they're going to pressure the ball. We're going to have to take care of the ball. That's number one. They kind of hang their hat on applying pressure, right? And our guys need to be comfortable handling that. That's going to be key. I haven't, to be honest with you, we play Mason tomorrow, and I can't watch too far ahead. My mind just doesn't work that way. So I haven't watched a ton of Princeton this year. I saw them a little bit in the summer. I saw them against some teams that we've been scouting this year. They're talented. They've got size. They've got some really good guards. They play fast. They run their Princeton offense. Um, it's always going to be a battle when it's Fairfield and Princeton. It doesn't matter where it's at, when it is, what teams' records are. And now with us uh, in a tie for first in our league, it's going to be even more intense. So you can expect a good one that night.
Absolutely. And I mean, you guys are gonna every team at the top of the conference, I feel like has a target on their back against some of the teams near the bottom, because you look at the standings, a team like Oak Hills, Sycamore, Mason, Hamilton, they're all sitting below 500 in the league, and all of those teams are capable of beating you if any of the top teams don't bring their A game on that night. Well, Coach, it was great that you joined us. I just have one last question. Are you bringing some smoothie money for Sunday? Have you had any of the smoothies during your trips to Trent Arena?
I have not had a smoothie up there. I haven't heard about them. If they're good, I'll give it a try. It'd be nice to have one after a win, but I may have to have one either way.
Oh, absolutely. Make sure you get a smoothie either before or after the game. One of my yearly favorite traditions at Flying to the Hoop. And best of luck the rest of the season. I will see you and the rest of your team on Sunday.
All right, great, man. I appreciate you having me on. I think you and TJ do a great job. It's keeps us informed about what's going on in the whole state. And you guys, like, this is a fun show to watch. You guys do an awesome job, man.
Perfect. Thanks, Coach. And to wrap up the episode, like always, we are going to be doing the Alumni Spotlight Player of the Week. My Division One Player of the Week is Keyshawn Hall from Cleveland Heights High School. He is at UCF and went for a career high 40 points against Arizona State, going 13 for 18 from the field, 4 for 6 from three-point range. Hall boosted his points per game after that to 17.6 for the season and has been a key piece to UCF's 12-4 start to the season. And they are sitting at 3-2 in the Big 12. Really impressive stuff by UCF. Keyshawn Hall, a kid who has continued to improve year over year, has been as much of a journeyman as anybody in the high school and college level, but having a great season for UCF. I also want to shout out Dayton Swain, Columbus Afrocentric, currently at Xavier. I attended the Xavier versus Villanova game on Tuesday, and Swain finished with 6 points, 5 rebounds, and had a big-time dunk in crunch time. He's getting looked at the NBA level, and it's easy to see why. On the Big East court, Swain just moves at a different pace than everybody else his size. The way he's able to change directions, stop and start, play above the rim. It's very impressive. Swain is also one of the youngest sophomores in the country, something I mentioned with Damon Fryery earlier, just buying the upside of players who are young for their grade, who are still producing. That was Swain for Afrocentric, and he's having a solid college career, establishing a role as a starter, as a sophomore. And if he comes back to Xavier next season, he's going to be one of the top players in the Big East Conference. My small college player of the week is Newark alum Elijah Hinton, who is at Ohio Dominican. I actually attended the Malone versus Ohio Dominican game on Saturday before hitting the 2 high school games in Columbus, and Hinton scored 26 points on 11 for 18 from the field, also pitched in 6 rebounds. ODU has won 4 in a row. Hinton also scored 31 points against Tiffin during that win streak. And then for Malone, I want to shout out South Central alum Simon Blair, who led the way with 15 points and 5 assists. Blair is just a blur off the dribble and is really hard to stay in front of. That will wrap it up for this episode of the Drive to Dayton podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed it, but not as much as when I'm joined by TJ. So hopefully we will have an episode for you guys next week where we talk about all the biggest topics that are going to come out of Flying to the Hoop. Should be a tremendous weekend of basketball. As always, if you see myself or TJ in the gym, make sure to say hi. We love catching up with our fans and also hearing from fans who watch different teams than us. It's hard to cover the entire state as thoroughly as we do. So some of you guys are experts at whatever region of the state you're from. I'm excited to see some Dayton teams for the first time this season. I've been very light on the Dayton coverage. So Flying to the Hoop, no better spot to watch Dayton hoops. So I'm Michael Roth, signing off.